December 14, 2017. My name is Kuldip Randhawa. I live in Surrey, BC, a province of Canada, a nation that is considered at the forefront of human rights. I have posted a number of videos on YouTube concerning some of the problems I've had in British Columbia. I always start off the videos with a statement that Canada is at the forefront of human rights, or considered to be. That's because I do intend and desire for it to be at the forefront of human rights. But having written a number of emails, letters, affidavits to Parliament, and numerous requests to the Honourable Justin Trudeau, I feel that my message is quite not getting across to you. So the position in 2018 will be altered, because a person such as myself can only do so much for the integrity of this nation, for it to be considered a nation that is truly at the forefront of human rights. Certain actions have to be taken at a domestic level. The residential schools is an issue that has kind of rocked the nation throughout the world to such a point that we all now realize what is taking place. When a person sends their children to school, it is done with a view that they are there for an education. Some children who do not have their parents don't have the same safeguard as one child who has a parent of means. So that parent has to think of the children when they're sending the children to school. And this is a painful topic for the First Nations. I realize that. But when crimes are taking place, those individuals who have committed the crimes have to be accountable for those crimes. The compensation that has been issued to the First Nations, in my view, is inadequate. But not only that, what has been ordered, even there, some of the lawyers who are representing the First Nations are actually deducting more fees that are not being paid to the First Nations. So this is a real issue. So this video concerns itself with the crimes that have taken place in Vancouver courts. They're taking place with the knowledge that they're not going to be held accountable. And so a number of frauds have already been exposed by myself. What happens is the person that exposes the fraud tries to do the right thing for this nation is the one that's victimized. So the compensation for these individuals, such as myself, should be at a certain scale which has never been done before, because we are harmed for speaking the truth, for defending the honor of this nation. We're writing to politicians and they're ignoring us. So this particular video, it's about the crime houses in British Columbia. Crime houses are the Vancouver courts and New Westminster courts. I'm quite certain that the judges in other circuits in British Columbia where such actions are taking place, I'm sure the same thing is happening there as well. So this matter has to be investigated. This video is about reporting a crime, which I'm doing as my duty under law. I cannot accept determinations issued by this court, which I know is being done in such a way that harm has to be caused to me and my family. So the damages have to be now also given to my family as well, because they are equally suffering here. And they have actually endured considerable pain and harm because of the system which is actually failed quite some time ago. So the gateway proceedings, take one example, is one of those proceedings which I never intended to expose. I had actually made orders before Judge Bernier to have this file sealed, and an order was made to have the files sealed so that the public cannot access these files. That was done for the sake of my family and its honor. We are honorable people. We do not want to have this problem exposed at a world level. And this is the essence of what is taking place here, is that you're taking advantage of this. You are playing with our culture. You're playing with our honor. And so this sealing order, having been made, was then altered when my former counsel in the gateway proceedings, S111030, Susan El Khatib, who represented me for a period of time, went to court and had the order altered. That order was altered by the same judge. It was altered beyond the 30-day limit that is normally set for making an appeal in the Court of Appeal. And so if that order can be changed, then the existing orders that were issued by Judge Bernier can also be changed. So what are the doctrines that allow those orders to be changed? There's a judicial review, for example, that can take place, because certainly the Court of Appeal is not there to investigate the crimes that are taking place within the court. If I do make an application, if I wanted to or had to, it would be thrown out, because the Court of Appeal is not for that. It's for adjudicating what errors were made, what facts were not considered by the judge. It does not deal with intentional criminal offenses that are taking place in the courtroom. So when a person such as myself makes a complaint and is making it now openly, then lawyers do realize that the orders that were issued by the present judge, Judge Murray, when Judge Bernier was removed by Chief Justice Christopher Hinkson by an order ex mero moto, then that judge and those orders that have been issued can be set aside, they can be varied, and for that you would have to read the materials. And do not prejudge me based upon what I'm stating here. You as lawyers can read the documents, just as engineers can review engineering design before telling their client this is possible and or not possible. In order for you to determine this, you would have to look at the facts. And those facts have actually been firmed up in the orders that have been issued. And those orders, when they do not talk about my funds, for example, there's a reason for this. Judge Murray is actually concealing the fraud, because she is now concealing my funds which are held in court, despite the fact that the lands have been sold against my will, without my permission, when I'm actually the only shareholder. And that shareholder is the shareholding order that was made by Judge Bernier back in 2013. And so I did not proceed further, because as far as I'm concerned, that order was and is in my favor. It declares me as the only shareholder. It does that because the reasons of judgment that are made by that judge, Judge Bernier, confirms this. Those facts and evidence is undisputed. That's the evidence that was accepted by Judge Bernier. Based on the analysis of those facts, the conclusions of law or the orders that were resulting from those reasons should match. And if they don't match, then that order can be altered. The reasons of judgment don't need to be altered. They just have to be analyzed. And this is the true reality of what actually happened, is they realized, despite having paid lawyers at Lawson Lundell, where Manjit Singh Randhawa paid his lawyers to provide a legal defense, he didn't retain those lawyers to commit fraud. And if that fraud has been committed by those lawyers, as officers of the court, they have a duty to come clean and say they've committed fraud. Well, I've actually given them that opportunity in excess of 5 years now. They have not refused to accept the truth. They believe that they are above the law. They believe they're not going to be investigated. And so they are continuing with that. So why has Manjit Singh Randhawa been offered? I was actually willing to settle with him if he had returned half of the funds that were sent to him as part of a settlement. Because he believes that he can control my family. He believes he can somehow mislead my family here in Canada, deceive the relatives. I believe he thinks that he can get away with this, and so he's continuing. And if you continue, I'm going to offer one more time. Only this time, the settlement offer which I'm making publicly, is for you to return all of the money now, and I will settle with you. And that settlement would be resulting in a settlement with you only, with the fact that you live overseas. You perhaps are not aware of what's taking place here, but having seen these videos that I've now created, you have a good sense of what's going to happen if you do not accept a settlement. The damages against you, which are considerable, are in excess of $10 million now. And there's criminal charges that could be placed against you. If you feel that you want an opportunity because you live overseas, because your lawyers have actually deceived you initially, and now you've been paid funds which actually don't belong to you, so they feel perhaps now you have more money to spend on them. If that's the reason that was money released to you, then you need to consider that you will not get away with it. So that clemency that I'm offering to you, I'm also offering to my own lawyers who were supposed to look after my interest. That clemency ends December 31st, 2017. What that basically means is, because of the special circumstances, there are a number of lawyers who have walked away from me, and all I'm asking from you is to consider the facts before you walk away. The orders can be altered without going to the Court of Appeal. So the two accidents that took place, one in December of 2016 and one in January of 2017, were too close to the two applications. One was the gateway proceeding, and the other proceeding was the CRA tax fraud. Now, the judge who's been appointed by Chief Justice Christopher Hinkson, if he has appointed Judge Murray to brush this problem under the carpet, rest assured that's not going to happen. I actually wrote emails to you telling you that if a judge of this court has involved himself or herself in fraud, your duty is to remove that judge. You have that ability. You have that power. I also wrote emails for the attention of Justice Murray, where I gave her an opportunity to apologize. I guess you did not recognize that. Perhaps you don't care. But in the recent judgment that you've issued, the reasons of judgment, do not enter any orders, because that would be a felony. I think you are fully aware that what you're doing here is totally wrong and it's criminal, and if you want to carry on, that's your choice. But you will be held accountable under law. The rule of law applies to everybody, including judges. So if you want to help yourself to avoid a travesty of injustice here, you can not enter any further orders. I'm requiring a stay of proceedings until those crimes are investigated. You are silent to my funds which are held in court. If my present lawyers need to consider my position, they need to consider all of the facts before them. I have provided you all of the documents that you need to make an application. You could file a request to appear. The fact that you was given orders to access my files, and the fact that you were refused by the counter staff, is an indication that this is not a legal system that's working lawfully. So if those individuals have refused you because you were retained as my counsel, I'm talking to Amarinder Randhawa, and you were entitled to access those files. So if the registry staff have not provided you those documents, in my view, that's contempt of court, because the registry staff have not obeyed those orders which clearly said that my counsel is entitled to documents. And so delaying a letter that was supposed to be issued by you almost 2 weeks ago, you could have gone on record. You could have said, you've just been retained and you need 2 weeks or 3 weeks because you're busy. That would have resulted in Judge Murray not issuing any orders. You could have requested a stay because before any reserve judgment is issued, then that could have been not issued if you had gone on record. So you clearly have caused a prejudice here. But I understand you are a brave lawyer, you're young, but you're not someone who's afraid. and I believe you are the right person for this job. And if you want to represent me with other counsel, I'll be more than happy to find other counsel. But I want to make sure that do not prejudge me. The way it works is this: I have retained you as my counsel. I can instruct you to do certain things. What I'm instructing you to do was not something difficult. It's what a normal lawyer would do. And so this clemency that I'm offering is not only to you, but my former lawyers, 4 of them who have walked away, and perhaps they can then come forward. Perhaps we can all get together in the same room and discuss this matter. I have 5 legal matters. I can get 5 lawyers involved. In fact, I'm going to be retaining, hopefully, another lawyer today if he takes on the immigration file, where my fingerprints were requested. When I came to Canada, I had no issues. But for some reason, they now want my fingerprints. My PR card issue, which is also on YouTube, well, they changed my nationality. These are not mistakes. These are intentional acts. They're done to cause harm to me. Even a reasonable person who doesn't live in this country can understand, such as Manjeet Singh Randhawa, that what you're doing here is now wrong and you need to stop. Take advice from me, your former young brother. We have a common name. We have respect for our family. You can alter that. But I do not want you coming to my house. I do not want you talking to my family. And nor do I want you to talk about this matter to other relatives of mine, because I don't think you're going to change your negative attitudes that have resulted in this problem being caused here. So you need to consider this very carefully. And so when one takes the matter into a situation that on June 8th, I was entitled to a case planning conference. That matter was only set for 45 minutes at 9 o'clock in New Westminster, despite the fact that this is a Vancouver proceeding. It was done because I believed that Judge Murray had realized that the other lawyers were actually trying to attempt to sell the lands. So I was deceived, it seems, in which I was told to come to court, in which staff at the registry counter told me this is a case planning conference. So if these statements were made to deceive me, then the problem is quite extensive. And so when I did come, you sold my lands by having me arrested, put me in a jail cell. This is an assault, because I was reporting the crime that was taking place in court to the police. I was calling 911. That is actually reporting a crime. I was doing my civil duty. And then you took me down. And then you told me that I was being released because the sentence was purged. And then you reassured me. You said I was quite intelligent. But I think what's happening here is that you've insulted my intelligence. That was itself a deception, to make me feel comfortable that I will come again on June 2nd, 22nd, when you then said that the case planning conference is now being set, in the expectation that the orders would be vacated, set aside. And then I realized that the lands are sold. And then on June 22nd, the case planning conference was not a case planning conference, because if one looks at the Supreme Court rules, certain documents have to be filed. Proposals, orders. You didn't do that. The lawyer, David Gibson, knows the Supreme Court rules. He turned up and started talking about the Justice Verhoeven order, an order in which some 10 lawyers were standing in front of him, pretending they did not know that this is a fraud, pretending that a water tank can be filled without pipes, pretending that CRA is owed taxes when there's actually no taxes due. When you have a process which is done in such a way that the rights of individuals are simply ignored, and you're going to support those crimes, and judges are going to declare people who are victims of fraud as vexatious, then what's really happening is, to get to the bottom of this, what one has to do is to basically review the files. All those people, maybe 80%, maybe 70%, whatever that figure is, who have been declared vexatious are most likely victims of fraud. This is a mechanism of concealing the fraud so that you can carry on. These are the sort of attitudes that existed when you had the residential schools issue. It's not the case that you do not know what you're doing is right or wrong. You are fully aware that you're doing it, and you're doing it with the knowledge that you're not going to be investigated. But I'm appealing to my present lawyers. If I'm coming to Indo-Canadian lawyers, it's for a reason. There's a trust, that there's a hope that you are part of the same community that is being exploited. And you have an opportunity here to not only provide me justice, when you consider that my damages are in excess of 100 million now, overall in all of the matters, you could earn a good living from that. But you have to be brave. You should not fear losing your license, because things are changing in 2018. How can a person appeal something when the order has not been presented to him? If the order has been issued by a judge who's involved in criminal offenses, one does not have to appeal that. These are arguments that you can understand. I am the only shareholder. Properties have been stolen, my shares have been stolen, and in addition to this, I was assaulted. When you have a white-collar crime which is done by professionals, normally there is no element of threats or intimidation or assault or violence. But in this particular case, in the gateway proceedings, not only is there white-collar crimes, but the act of having me arrested was actually an assault. It was a crime being committed in which obstruction of justice took place, and that is actually falls under a serious crime called felony. And the evidence is not difficult to find. It's right there within the proceedings. And you can seal the file as much as you like. If you want to conceal the fraud, it's not going to work, because at the end of the day, the orders that are made still do not make sense. The fact that Judge Murray has issued the reasons of judgment and concealed my amount which is held in court is part of that fraud. So all I can do now is appeal to my present lawyers. The complaint is not being withdrawn. I do intend coming to court in 2018. I would like to write a letter, and I will be doing that, to the Chief Justice of the Court of Appeal. If he can tell me that if a judge has committed a crime in the court, if that is a matter that will be considered by him, in which I'm actually going to be seeking the judge to be arrested, because that is my right, my lawful right in following the law of this nation. In order for it to be at the forefront of human rights, you really have to hold those people accountable under law. And the rule of law is for that. It applies to everybody. With that said, there's only one closing comment that I would like to make, and that is this: that when a person does not stop the litigation and he is truly a vexatious person, then people who are close to me, my family here in Canada, you need to now realize that this person has to be dealt with harshly. He has to be dealt with a heavy hand of the law. He has to be held accountable for the losses and the damages. We need to come together here. I'm actually working very closely with my family here. I've told them what the issues are. I'm requiring the family to come together here in Canada, and so we can plan an action so that we can have our funds not only retrieved, but the true amount being retrieved, and the costs being appealed in the Court of Appeal, and the criminal offenses are actually being reported to the Vancouver Police Department. And those complaints are repeatedly done for the last 3 years now by emails. It seems the Vancouver Police Department and the New Westminster Police Department have not processed any complaint. This is a file that needs to be referred to a senior detective or some organization within the RCMP that investigates white-collar crimes. And it's not difficult to investigate this, because it's not the case where some criminal is hiding in the basement. We know where the crimes are taking place. They're taking place in the Vancouver courts. All we need is people with strong will to come forward and do the right thing. And that's why I retained a lawyer. So I would like all of my lawyers to consider this matter very carefully. I have come to you with a particular problem which is not normal. I know it's a difficult problem to solve, but it is not something which can't be solved. In fact, it's very easy to solve. All you have to do is ask yourself, when you have a case planning conference, hearing, what are the procedures? What are the documents that have to be filed? And if those documents have not been filed, well, then you can assess very easily that this is not a case planning conference. So the whole thing is staged, where I'm actually deceived again and again and reassured by people within the court, come for justice, and then actually the person is deprived of justice. And so you can contact me, because this world is changing rapidly. A number of countries have actually made good progress on the legal side, but I think Canada is one of those nations which simply seems to cover up the problem and conceal it as a means to sort of get away with crimes, because that is what criminals do. They hide, behind closed doors or offices. But a person who is speaking the truth and proudly speaking it is prepared to make a video, because that means you should be actually quite pleased that there's someone in Canada, and you should be proud of me that I'm doing this, because it affects us all. And so with that, kindly contact me, whoever it is that wants to solve this problem with me, to work with me, not against me, and particularly to my family over here in Canada. My email is Kuldip Randhawa5, KULDIPRANDHAWA5 @gmail.com. God bless.